companies. Khalilzad will liaise with the new Afghani leader, Hamid Karzai, a former consultant to UNOCAL. You get the idea. A General Motors president once said, "Structure is strategy in slow motion." The structure of this cabinet shows, in my opinion, the primacy of oil interests. How does this connect with the events of 9/11? Well, it's hard to just invade a country out of the blue, I believe. The perfect pretext is a so-called war on terrorism, founded firmly, so far, upon the official narrative of what happened on September 11th. The psychological trick at the heart of September 11th, by the way, is that people confuse their compassion for the victims with their certainty about who the perpetrators are. The public was presented with instant perpetrators. The trick will most likely continue working for all future planned invasions. Looks as if Iraq is next, so long as the public remains blindfolded by the media. 9/11 serves the ends of the oligarchy. That does not, in itself, prove a connection between big oil and what happened on September 11th. But the fact that it does serve those ends must be taken together with other evidence, just part of which is the illegal importation, training, and protection of terrorists on U.S. soil by the CIA, the much publicized failure of U.S. intelligence, the failure of the U.S. Air Force on the day, the inexplicable trades of United and American Airlines stocks in the days prior, the big economic difficulties the Bush administration was facing, and the looming Enron scandal. Next week, The Great Deception, Part 5. September 11th has brought mostly unpleasant changes, including curtailment of civil liberties and threatened perpetual war, all rooted in the official story of what happened on September 11th. Namely, that one evil man and his network are responsible, and that the U.S. military, intelligence, and political establishments were all caught totally off guard. Millions of intelligent people accept this story as their own. Any argument about any aspect of the conduct of the war against terrorism, as Globe and Mail columnist John Ibbotson puts it, must begin with those airplanes smashing into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and then it must stay there and never move from that spot. If it's that important, and I agree it is, then it's the duty of the media and of intelligent citizens to inquire about any anomalies about September 11th. Today's question: what did George Bush know, and when did he know it on September 11th?
Bush was first informed of the suicide attacks at an education event in Florida, his face creasing into anxiety. The crisis transformed his presidency.
This image, embedded in the official story, has led the world to believe that when Bush's chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispered into his ear at an elementary school at 9:05 that morning, it was the first the U.S. president learned that, in his words, America was under attack. But a growing number of people, including the careful researchers at emperorsclothes.com, don't think so. Using verifiable, publicly available information, Ilarion Bykov and Jared Israel, an intrepid Canadian, raise questions mainstream media stubbornly refuse to even acknowledge. Consider, Bykov and Israel say, the words of journalist John Cochrane, who was traveling with the president on the morning of September the 11th, on an ABC special report. Cochrane is speaking to Peter Jennings. Peter, as you know, the president's down in Florida talking about education. He got out of his hotel suite this morning, was about to leave. Reporters saw the White House Chief of Staff, Andy Card, whisper into his ear. The reporter said to the president, "Do you know what's going on in New York?" He said he did, and he said he will have something about it later. His first event is about half an hour at an elementary school in Sarasota, Florida. So Bush knew, writes Emperor's Clothes, about the first incident before leaving his hotel. Take other evidence. By 8:20, according to its own official report, the Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA, is fully aware of the unprecedented emergency in the skies. As Bykov and Israel point out, the President of the United States travels with an entire staff, including the Secret Service, which is responsible for his safety. The members of this support team have the best communications equipment in the world. They maintain contact with, or can easily reach, Bush's cabinet, the National Military Command Center and Pentagon, the FAA. In other words, around 8:46 at the absolute latest, the Secret Service and the President would have known of all 4 hijacked airliners and that one had hit the World Trade Center. That's 2 sets of proofs that question the famous whisper in the ear at 9:05. Still not convinced? How about the typically garbled words of the President himself? From the transcript of a town hall session in Orlando, Florida on December the 4th. Jordan, a 3rd grader. How did you feel when you heard about the terrorist attack? Applause. The President. Thank you, Jordan. Well, Jordan, I was sitting outside the classroom waiting to go in, and I saw an airplane hit the tower. The TV was obviously on. And I used to fly myself, and I said, well, there's one terrible pilot. But I was whisked off there. I didn't have much time to think about it. And I was sitting in the classroom, and Andy Card, my chief of staff, walked in and said, a second plane has hit the tower. America is under attack. And Jordan, I wasn't sure what to think at first. Wait a minute. The President tells us he saw the incredible image of the first plane going in. He went ahead with an easily cancelable appointment. Why? He tells us he knew his country was under attack, yet he continued to listen to a student talk about her pet goat and such for another 25 minutes. Why? Where can you find that town hall transcript? On the White House website. Thanks to a viewer on the West Coast for drawing it to my attention. In other words, no matter how you cut it, George W. Bush is acting right here. There are many other facts equally puzzling, at least for anyone still clinging to the official story of 9/11. His schedule and whereabouts had been publicly announced. Why did the Secret Service not whisk him away for safety's sake? Do you think there's anything here that mainstream media should follow up? Have you noticed any such follow-up? Do you find this as incredible as I do? What will it take to snap people out of the hypnotic trance of the official story and start asking questions? Maybe you calling an editor and raising hell. Until the world finds out the truth about what really happened on September the 11th, the world is held hostage to the so-called war on terrorism. And surely it's time to recognize that for what it is, harsh final steps to what the